So I want to start off by talking about a town which was destroyed because their own government was completely incompetent, which is hilarious. So there's a town called Centralia in Pennsylvania. Centralia. So it had a population of a thousand or so in 1980. 5 people live there today in 2017, and they're the ones who refused to leave. All the other houses were basically torn down by the government. So, what do you think happened to this town in Pennsylvania? Any hypothesis, Han?
Nuclear disaster.
Wrong. Felix, any
Damn.
hypothesis?
Gas, explosion, something coming from the ground.
That's called Groningen, but no, wrong.
I'm sorry. We're
Anyways,
going to be keeping your ass warm until this war ends.
well, we'll see about that. Anyways, so what happened? You're actually closer than you think, Felix. So Pennsylvania is known for being a good coal mining place. So they had a bunch of coal mines underneath Centralia, which were quite sizable. I think in the background of the picture, you can actually see some mining-like activity in the smaller picture. And what you do with old mine shafts, or old, mine shafts, which you don't want anymore. The people of Centralia, being great Americans, thought, well, we need a dump for our town. Why don't we just use the old mine shafts as a dump to dump all our junk and trash into? Cool idea, right, Han?
I'm not a geologist, but I feel like this is going to fuck up your soil.
Partially. What was the bigger issue is that one of these mine shafts was close to a graveyard, and they were like, oh, we can't be dumping stuff near the dead people. So we should clear out this mine shaft we've been dumping stuff in for a while. So what they said is, okay, we know this is illegal, but under the table, we'll just get some firemen to burn it. Sound like a good idea, right?
Oh, no.
So they set fire to burn out the trash from the mine shaft. However, this fire turned into an uncontrolled fire very quickly. And guess what they mined there? Coal, which is flammable. So this entire mine facility underneath the entire town has a huge fire going in there, which is several hundred degrees Fahrenheit, which they could not get to turn out. And after a few days of trying, they're like, okay, we screwed up here. We're going to call an emergency, call the government. And they're like, what the hell did you guys do here? And they ended up evacuating most of the town and slowly trying to get everybody out. And it's still burning today. It's expected that this fire will continue to burn for another 250 years, making this town completely unlivable.
This is just going to increase the American CO2 emissions substantially, but this kind of stupid shit.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Anyways, the you can even there's cracks in the road where smoke rises out of from the burning from underneath the ground. It's insane.
But is it, just to be realistic here, is it a conspiracy?
No, I'm warming you up for my next conspiracy. I just thought this is too good not to include. This is the pinnacle of because Felix, you're an aspiring, somewhat of a bureaucrat yourself, as I've always pictured you as that type. So
Wrong.
Don't do this is all I say.
Wrong. That's so
anyways, have either of you ever heard of a town that goes by the name of Doveland, Wisconsin?
I have not. Again.
Okay.
Neither do I.
So the thing about Dublin is it's a town a lot of people remember existing. And when I say a lot of people, if you ask a person in Wisconsin if they know of Dublin, a lot of them will say, yes, I've driven past it. Yes, I picked up a t-shirt there once. Yes, I've seen it. Somebody's told me about it. It's really ingrained within the Wisconsinites that Dublin existed. It was alleged to be more of a roadside stop, smaller town, but Dublin existed. However, since the 1980s or 90s, nobody can find Duveland on any map or on anything whatsoever. And the scary thing is that it's a really big group of people who are not connected, who do genuinely put forth Duveland exists. It's not some kind of hoax. People think it exists. So why did it disappear? Why do people think this way? The first explanation is the easy one, which is it's just a Mandela effect of something people collectively think they remember. This is also related to some explanations that there was a shift in the parallel universes and this town just disappeared. Others say it just never existed. It was just some kind of hoax. an understanding maybe it did exist and people just moved out and it just disappeared, but that doesn't explain why it just completely disappeared. Any of these reasons, tickling your fancy for either of you?
I feel like it might just be a thing that rises naturally between people. I don't. I'm not from. I'm not rural. All right. I don't know how rural people think. You should be able to tell me that. But I feel like it's just something that might happen in
Mm.
places like that. If there's so many little villages, you're like, oh yeah, I've visited that one. I think probably.
It's a weird thing that a lot of independent people claim exists.
Well,
But
are they asked if they've been to Dublin, or are they like, yeah, I was in Dublin yesterday? Do they mention it on their own, or are
no,
people prompting
it's
it?
more of I remember having been to Dublin because,
Hmm.
and then they're like, Dublin exists, right? And then they're shown to a map and they're like, where the hell's Dublin? It's a weird thing. What do you think, Felix?
I come from a rural area. Simon knows it. He has been there. I know quite a couple of villages, or kind of.
Rural
Oh, okay. Compared to your Canadian Woodhouse, definitely not a rural area.
log cabin.
But I remember me going to little villages that were either just one street or something in the Netherlands, or possibly
Mm.
shout out, "Yeah, I've been there." And then mostly I felt sorry for the guys that were living there and had to go to school in a different city and had to cycle for longer than an hour, 2 hours. But I could believe that.
Okay. Well, the explanation I'm pulled towards myself is a very obscure one. And it's of a rumor that this town disappeared completely after existing due to a government experiment going wrong. And there's some meat behind these bones. So basically, what they allege happened is this government experiment went wrong, killed most of the people in the town, and they covered it up to avoid mass, outrage or to protect their secrets. So I've actually found the project which they allege happened there too. During the Cold War, in the late 1960s or so, they had this problem where they had these nuclear submarines under the ocean, and once it's under the ocean, you can't contact them. If they're so far deep under the ocean, you can't send a radio wave to get to them. There's no way to tell. And that kind of is an issue when you're trying to work on a doctrine of mutually assured destruction, where if Russia launches nukes against America, these subs have to pop up and be like, oh, now I have to fire my nukes. But if they can't get a message, they don't know to pop up and fire those nukes. So America was like, yo, we need a better kind of stronger radio wave tower to send out messages to submarines to pop up and shoot nukes. The issue is the only radio frequency thing that would work is called an alpha frequency or an extremely low frequency. But the problem with this is that you need a really large receiver to send this out, and you also need like to hide it somewhat because it'd be like the first target in any kind of like strike on your country. So this resulted in Project Sanguine, which allegedly happened from the late 1960s all the way into the late 1980s. So the idea was, and stick with me here, some amazing American official was like, yo, what if we turned 2/5 of the state of Wisconsin into a massive radio receiver? It's a great idea, I have to
I
admit.
should ask. We should have asked Kelsey on this podcast. I wonder what she has to say. She lives in Wisconsin.
She's from Iowa, isn't she?
Oops,
But
it's the same place anyway.
And you've lost your listeners from Iowa.
Also, Wisconsin.
anyways. But no, it's insane. They were like, we're legit turning this half the state into a radio receiver. And their plan was actually quite feasible to do it. So how they would do it is that they would insert a giant antenna of nearly 10,000 kilometers of cable into a grid covering about 58,000 square kilometers, which would serve as a giant antenna, which is kind of built into like kind of a rock under like Wisconsin. And this could survive a nuclear strike because it's so large and underground. And it could also send out these radio transmissions, which was a one-way transmission, which could hit the submarine. They'd like, yo, a message. They'd pop up, get the message, and then send out their nukes if they had to or something like that. So it would all work well and fine, except it was really expensive. And people didn't really like, the idea of the government ripping apart half of the state of Wisconsin to throw cables into it. So, theoretically, it was axed. However, the rumor goes it wasn't axed, and the town of Doveland was near some kind of dam, and the United States government accidentally broke the dam and flooded the entirety of Doveland, killing off most of the people and wiping the town off the map. And that's it.
So what? How inbred was this town that nobody ever thought to visit? Like nobody left this town or something? Did nobody have dead relatives?
It's a small town. I don't know. The government could have just been like, "Oh, your dearly beloved one accidentally got killed in a roadside crash or something." Happens all the
Oh,
time.
my entire family got killed in a roadside crash, including my aunts and uncles.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
It's feasible. This could have happened.
It was a big bus.
It was they all went on a family trip and they didn't invite you because it was going to be a surprise for your birthday, and then they all crashed. Everyone.
I mean, yeah, it does explain why Dublin suddenly disappeared.
Yes. I think random, random comet works too.
Well, all of us here are Dutch, and the idea of dams breaking, that should put some credence to this theory.
We don't have breaking dams. We don't. Look, we did that one time. We don't do it anymore.
Okay.
Like, we actually learn from our mistakes instead of you guys.
Well, what do we think about Dublin? Are we sold on it being an accidental government calamity which disappeared this town into non-existentness, or is it just a parallel dimension?
Um, yeah, America is a big country, really big country. So in the bloody middle of somewhere of America, it could happen, but it's no. The fact that I said a rural area would say people from rural areas would say, yeah, I know the place and stuff like that, but there should be more linked. There should be more discoveries, or either a documentary that should have come out or another podcast. Even now, especially in COVID times, people.
This is a part.
Oh yeah, no, this is a podcast, but someone would have figured it out already. So no, I'm not buying it.
And you, Han, it's your final chance to buy into my theory for today. Come on.
I'm not buying into this one. I'm sorry. I'll buy into. I bought into the first one, I think. Right. So that's what you get.
I just love the idea that they thought their answer to their problem of communicating in subs was to turn half of a state into a big antenna. It's so ludicrous.
That is, but the thing is, it's so insane. But then again, this was the Cold War. People they were scared shitless. They would do some very, very silly things to actually make sure that everything went all right. If you look at the Second World War, there were things like they had so many weird inventions that were so insane, but they actually explored it. Like the whole mind control thing of MK Ultra as well. That's like, how do you even think of that?
Yeah.